you. Can you believe that many years ago I was as little as you are? It's hard to believe, isn't it? But I was a little boy, and I grew up in a country called South Africa, where there was a lot of hate and prejudice. There was a lot of hate and prejudice in that country because of the color of the skin. I was brown colored, and people who had white color hated me because my skin was brown, and people who had black color hated me also because of the color of my skin. And it seemed like everybody hated everybody else, and for no reason except the color of the skin. And it filled me with a lot of anger and rage, and I wanted to fight back again. I wanted to fight with all the people who insulted me and who bullied me. I was beaten up because of the color of my skin. And that is when my parents decided to take me to India and leave me with grandfather for a few years so that I can learn something from him. And the first lesson that he taught me was about understanding anger and being able to use that energy constructively and intelligently. You know, you get angry every day? You get angry? Yeah. And what do you do when you get angry? What do you do when you get angry? You go in your room? Anybody fights? Anybody throws tantrums? No? Sometimes, right? Well, at least you are better behaved than I was. Because I was very angry and I wanted to fight. And yeah. And the grandfather taught me that anger is like electricity. You know, the electrical energy. It's just as useful if we use it intelligently, but it can be just as deadly if we abuse it. So you know what happens if we abuse electricity, electrical energy? It will shock you, it can even kill you, right? Yeah. So we should not play with electrical energy, but use it intelligently and use it for the good of humanity. So in the same way, he told me that anger is the same thing. If we abuse anger, we can destroy ourselves. But if we use anger intelligently, we can resolve problems that exist between people. And he taught me how to do this. Every day I had to write an anger journal, and not just pour my anger into the journal, but write the journal with the intention of finding a solution to the problem, and then commit myself to finding a solution. And I did this for many years, and it helped me understand my anger and being able to use that energy constructively to help people realize that hate and prejudice is not good, that we need to look at each other and respect each other as human beings and not judge people because of their color or their race or their nationality or their religion. So I thought that this was a very important lesson for all of us to learn, because anger, it is said, causes more than 80% of the violence that we experience. In our lives, whether in our individual life or in the life of our nation, 80% 80% of the violence that we experience is created by anger. So if we learn to use that energy constructively and intelligently, we can stop that violence very substantially in our lives there. So it's very important for us to learn that, and that's why I wrote this children's book, because that is the first lesson that all of you need to learn, just as I learned at your age. And if you can learn that, then you will grow up to be more peaceful and be able to create peace in this world. So anger was a very important thing for us to learn that. But also another lesson that grandfather taught me, and that showed me about, when we talk about non-violence, we think only if we are not fighting with each other, we are non-violent. But what grandfather showed me was that we can be violent without fighting with each other. And that is by wasting things. I was coming back from school when I was still about your age, and I had a little pencil in my hands. It was about 3 inches long. And I thought I needed a better pencil, a longer pencil. This is too small for me to use. And so I just threw the pencil away because I was so sure grandfather would give me a new pencil when I asked him for one. But that day in the evening when I met grandfather and asked him for a new pencil, instead of giving me a new pencil, he subjected me to a lot of questions. He wanted to know how the pencil became small and where did I throw it away and why did I throw it away. And he just kept on asking me questions. And then he tells me, he says, you got to go out and look for the pencil. And I said, you must be joking. He said, you don't expect me to look for a little pencil in the dark? He said, oh yes, I do. He has a flashlight. And he sent me out with the flashlight to look for this pencil. I felt so stupid then, looking for a little pencil out in the dark there. But I couldn't say no to grandfather, so I looked for it, and about an hour later when I found the pencil and brought it to him, he said, now I want you to sit here and learn 2 very important lessons. The first lesson is that even in the making of a simple thing like a pencil, we use a lot of the world's natural resources. And when we throw them away, we are throwing away the world's natural resources, and that is violence against nature. And the second lesson is that because in an affluent, rich society, we can afford to buy all these things in bulk, we overconsume the resources of the world, and because we overconsume them, we are depriving people elsewhere of these resources, and they have to live in poverty, and that is violence against humanity. So every time we throw away something, or we destroy something, or we, you buy toys, you have toys at home? Yeah? And you play with those toys for a day or 2 days, and then you want to throw it away and get a new one, right? Yeah. Sometimes. Well, every time we do that, we are committing violence. Violence against other people or violence against nature. Because we use a lot of the natural resources to make all these things. And when we throw them away, we are throwing away a lot of good things there. I want to share with you one experience I had. I used to live in a city called Mumbai in India. You know where India is? Yeah. reading a book, and a little while later I saw somebody who was pulling at my trouser leg. And when I looked down, it was a little kid, about 5 years old, smaller than many of you, and he was dressed in rags. His clothes were torn and he was in very dirty state, and he had a little box of candy, and he was trying to sell the candy to me. And I was shocked, because I wouldn't think of sending my 5-year-old kid alone on a train in a city like Mumbai. And I said, how can this little kid be traveling all by himself and selling candy? So at the station, when I was getting off, I told the child to get off with me, and we sat on the station bench, and I asked him about his life. And he told me that they came from a very poor family. They were 2 brothers and the parents, and they were extremely poor, so they were living in shanties. You know what shanties are? No. You know these little cardboard, homeless people build little cardboard houses and sleep in them? They were living in a place like that. And he said every morning his mother would make these candies and give him the whole box, and he had to go out and sell all that candy and bring the money home, and only then he would get something to eat. Now imagine a 5-year-old kid sent out of the house with a box of candies and not given any food until he brings the money home. Now, I met him, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and he still had half a box of candy. And I thought to myself, I asked him, I said, did you eat anything during the day? And he said only little scraps of food that he could pick up in the garbage, and nothing more than that. And I said, this boy has still got half a tin full of candy, and when is he going to sell all this, and when is he going to go home and get a proper meal? So that day I bought the candies from him and gave him the money to go and eat. But then I thought to myself that I was there to help him today. Who is going to help him tomorrow and the day after and after that? And then when I looked into this whole thing, I found there are millions of children like you, your age children, who are homeless, who have nobody, who have no food to eat and no home to live in. And they just exist on the streets. So I started a little school, just like this school, and now we have 1,000 children in that school. And we take care of them, we feed them, we give them clothes, and we give them education, and they can then come out of the poverty and get a good job and live there. So these are little things that all of us must learn about creating peace. We can create peace only if we can feel the pain of other people in our society, and if we can do something to help them be good human beings. So how would you feel if you were in that little boy's position? Very sad. Can you imagine not eating for the whole day, not getting anything to eat for the whole day?
No. I do see poor people on the streets.
That's good. When you get big, you'll get money and you can then help now you're still a little child. But when you grow up, you must continue to have that compassion for people and help them. So it's very important for us to see all this, because half of the world population lives in extreme poverty, and the other half of the world lives in like we do here. So if we want to create peace in the world, we have to make it possible for everybody to live comfortably and to have food and home to live in. And if we can do that, then we won't have wars and fighting and terrorists and all of these things. But if we don't, then we are going to have all these acts of terrorism and violence growing, and wars and all that, and eventually we get consumed by it. So that is what peace means. That we have to be conscious and we have to do whatever we can in a small way, bring about a change in people's lives. Did you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Once I was really kind because I was doing homeless back.
Oh, wonderful. That's a great thing. Wonderful. Anybody else has questions?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, you?
When I was a little kid, I lived in a small house.
Uh-huh. You are still a little kid, maybe.
When I lived in it,
Uh-huh. Yes.
I lived in a tiny house. I
Mhm.
think it's tiny. It's actually a good size. I consider it tiny.
Yes.
I have a really small hallway.
You have what?
I have a really small
I will tell Daddy to make a big hallway for you. How's that? Yes.
I have a really big Lego set.
What do you do with that Lego set? You make anything out of it? Yes. Hmm.
I have a really tiny house.
You have a real tiny house?
No. If your house is big,
Yes.
my house is it different than how technically just things this house from your house. That's just integrity, but is there like a real meaning to it?
What's the question? Can you say?
The question is, what is integrity and compassion?
Huh?
And how do we display it? Right?
Since I know you can just be honest, though, some people might consider integrity more than that.
Yeah, one can be honest, but some people think that integrity is more than honesty. So yeah, integrity is more than honesty. It is about how you think, how you behave, how you relate to each other. All of these things combined is, then considered integrity. And honesty is part of that whole thing there. But compassion is something that we have to cultivate. A love for people, a love for people who are in trouble, try to help them as best as we can. Sometimes we get into the habit that we see somebody in trouble and we don't want to get involved in it, and we just turn and walk away from it. And that's not always very good. We need to have that kind of compassion and love for people and try to help each other as best as we can. Yeah.
When I don't want something, I always bring it to Goodwill so people can give it to others.
Yeah, that's great. She gives all things that she doesn't want to Goodwill so that other children can benefit from it. And that's wonderful.
I have a question. So your school for those children is to what age? Up till what age?
We have our youngest is about, I think, 5, and the oldest is now 18.
Then what happens to those children when they graduate from your school? Usually, often.
Well, it's not a regular school where we teach them all the regular subjects. We give them basic education and we give them training and things that they can do to make a living when they go out into the world. Some kids who have shown some promise in academic studies, we have sent them to regular schools and we pay their tuition there. And last year, 8 of these kids graduated from high school with all A+ grades. And it was really shocking because these were the first generation of children for God knows how many generations they have never been to school. And so for them to come graduate from high school with all A+ grades was a great thing. But they are now going to college and studying, and so we have all of these mixed bag of children, some who are very bright and good at academic studies, some who are not that bright and they can only learn some kind of trade and so on.
Thank you.
Yes.
My mom's reading a book so she can treat more Buddhism instead of letting her anger grow.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, children, it was wonderful speaking with you, and I hope that you learned a little bit from what we have said today, and that you'll use it in your life. Become better human beings, right?